He has a great mullet also, so that like I got a shit, dude. Welcome to Morning Wood. I'm Jason. This is Matt. This is a sports show. We are dumb, but we're going to talk about sports. If you didn't know, football season is upon us. It is almost September. We have NFL in 2 weeks. College football starts in 2 days.
It's exciting stuff. I'm excited. Football's back. We can start talking about some NFL stuff, some new changes. We got a new kickoff rule coming in. Some starting quarterbacks have been announced, so I think we can jump right into that. Jason, do you like the new kickoff? Do you not like the new kickoff? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it?
Yeah, so this is definitely like the biggest change in NFL football, probably like in our lifetime. Just to go over the rules like really simply. So the receiving team can set up between the 35 and the 30, but the kicking team has to have 1 foot on the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
And then the landing zone is where the kicker is trying to kick it from the goal line to the 20-yard line. And if the kick is short of the landing zone, then it's like it was kicked out of bounds. The ball will be spotted at the 40-yard line. So it has to land in between the goal line and the 20. A touchback, the ball will be placed on the 30-yard line. So that's kind of penalizing the kicking team or the kicker if they just boot it out of the end zone.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So they want more returns, which I like. Like after watching preseason and really like trying to figure out how this is going to work. I wouldn't say I like it more than the previous rule, but to start the game, I think it's more exciting because you were expecting a touchback. I don't know what the touchback percentage last year was. It was probably 90% or over.
It definitely was a lot.
So like it didn't matter. Like, okay, you get the ball first, you're going to start at the 25-yard line because the kicker is going to kick it through the uprights on the kickoff.
Yeah.
In that way, I like that they're bringing back the kickoff as it mattering as like a football play.
It's a big change, like you said, teams will have to get used to it, adjust to it. It's definitely a more focused change going into the season. I think special teams was very obviously, like you said, like it's been structured. It's been the same thing for a very long time. Now it's a new look, which gives coaches the opportunity to kind of mess around with it. I do like those things that I talked about, like the positives. I just wish it was structured a little bit different. But overall, I mean, if it allows more big plays and stuff like that, I'm definitely all for it. I just wish it was changed a little bit on the structured part of it. But we'll see. It'll be an interesting change to the season this year. Speaking of changes or new stuff, there have been some starting quarterbacks named recently. The first one that is on the list is Gardner Minshew is now the starting quarterback of the Raiders. I like Minshew. I think his vibe that he brings to the team, I like that guy a lot. I think he works really hard. I don't think it's going to be, necessarily like a MVP season for the Raiders quarterback or anything, but I do like the energy he normally brings. He's a fun watch. So I'm with that. I like that a lot from the Raiders.
I have a lot of respect for Gardner Minshew because wherever he goes, like he's always in the conversation of he's always either the backup or like a ready to go second string quarterback.
Yeah.
He has a great mullet also, so that like high on my list of accolades.
He's such a dude. Like he's a guy.
If there was going to be a quarterback competition with Gardner Minshew and then like Aiden O'Connell, I think Gardner Minshew is the guy for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. Love Minshew mania. The other one that was actually announced yesterday, probably when this drops, it'll be 2 days, but is Bo Nix. Sean Payton announcing Bo Nix is now the starter for Denver. Denver's in a weird spot. They had I think when Russ got there was a lot of promise, a lot of expectation in that offense to, put up points and move the ball with that head coach mind and the players they had. It didn't really work out. Obviously it didn't pan out, but Now is Bo Nix's time to shine. I did like his college game. I think he can, bring a lot to Denver as long as he just meshes with the offense. I think Denver should be happy about that draft pick. I think it can pan out for them in the hopefully up and coming seasons. I don't really see a negative to it at all. I like Bo a lot.
No, I agree. I think he's probably the right choice in Denver. I saw like a couple of his preseason starts. He looked good. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not saying like it's preseason, but I mean, it's better to look good in preseason than to look bad in preseason. Um,
Right.
like people say it's just preseason, but like at least he doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
Um, and I get it. It's against like simple coverages and stuff, but he looked pretty good. I don't think the Broncos have anything to lose with him starting. Um, I think Sean Payton will get. I think he can. I'm not saying like he's going to be Drew Brees, but like he feels like that type of play style, like Drew Brees' play style, like short, like quick passes, slants,
Yeah.
like that kind of play style.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely he can also like, ad lib, probably a little bit more athletic than Drew was. Not obviously not saying he's gonna be better, but just more options possibly in that offense that they can, utilize his tools with. Do you wanna go into the rookie guys?
Rookie debut so far, like just watching some preseason. Obviously, the biggest story probably from rookie quarterbacks is Caleb Williams on the Bears. Um, had some pretty highlight worthy plays in preseason. Some a touchdown run, some throws to the other rookie Roma Dunze from Washington. So that duo is. I mean, they have like he has three like really viable receivers
Yeah.
uh, in Chicago. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze, the rookie, and Cole Kmet is a good tight end, good receiving tight end.
Yeah.
So he's got the pieces to be successful. And so far, it looks like he is going to be okay.
Yeah, I did watch pretty much every snap he had against the Bengals. I will say, obviously, his first series, a lot of his first throws, they were very like jittery. It seemed like he wanted to get rid of the ball quickly. But as he settled into the game, I think the biggest strength that he showed was his pocket awareness and presence. Even though he is a rookie, but he did make a lot of like even smaller plays. I know there's the one, the big highlight play, the rollout to the left, the cross body throw, but there was a lot of like quick footwork, um, just plays in the pocket that he looked, very comfortable in coming from USC and how he played in college. So they have a lot of weapons that they can, plug and play around him and his game. And that is going to be an interesting watch this year. I do like how he looked in that preseason. The other one is Jaden Daniels. I did watch that as well. Similar, like I think the game from college, because it's a lot of the young guys are just starting in the league nowadays. Where probably when we were younger, it was much more of like learn, watch, develop, and then go. Where this is more like plug and play for the young guys. I noticed that a lot of it is like quick reads, and they're definitely like reading defenses a little bit faster. Guys like CJ Stroud with that type of year he had as a rookie, like Jaden looked like he was not, I wouldn't say reading an NFL defense, but he's definitely like ahead of what you would see as a preseason rookie. Like they seem to see the field a little bit better, get the ball out quicker. He still had some rush throws and stuff, but I think overall those two guys looked good. Obviously, he didn't have like the mind blowing across body throw and highlights, but yeah, I think he looked solid. Which is a good thing for some of these fan bases on the new quarterbacks coming in.
Yeah, I saw some comparisons. I mean, local comparisons from like local writers comparing Jaden Daniels to like RG3 when he was there. So
I like that. I
it's high
mean,
praise. I mean, he had a great year, obviously. RG3 did when that one great year that he had in the NFL.
yeah, when he was healthy.
So yeah.
That's a good comparison. We again, these are interesting to watch. and kind of monitor throughout the season how the young guys do.
No, yeah, we still have one more week of preseason left for the NFL, and then, 2 weeks from when we're recording this right now is when uh, the Ravens and the Chiefs will kick off the season. So we still have a little bit more time before we have NFL football that really matters.
Yep.
But we do have football that matters in 2 days. College football starts week 0. Florida State and Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland.
Ireland, baby.
FSU, obviously the ACC defending champs. Jordan Travis gets hurt. They still have an undefeated season. They don't get into the college football playoff. Controversy there. This year coming in, new quarterback, DJ Ugalele, DJU, I'm going to refer to him as. Veteran in college football, I think, is a good fit for them. They need someone that's not just like a freshman or sophomore guy. He's a veteran coming in. He'll be able to lead the offense, no problem.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of guys to the NFL, but they've reloaded in the transfer portal in the offseason. Their defense is going to be fine. And then looking at Georgia Tech, Haynes King coming back for the Yellow Jackets. They were 7-6 overall, 5-3 in conference play last year. Obviously, FSU, they're 11-point favorites. They should win this football game, but it is ACC play to start off the season.
Yeah, I think Florida State, coming off of what you said last year, that whole situation with the playoff, I think this could be a statement game week 1. Kind of let everybody know they're back. They're still just as good as they were, even though they lost a bit. I think also, like you said, with the transfer portal, I'm sure the recruiting classes the last 2 seasons for them have been great as well, for depth and stuff. So, yeah, I'm pretty big on FSU this year. I think that they're going to be a really good team and a problem for a lot of opponents this year. So, interesting matchup. But, yeah, well, I think we both have FSU winning that one pretty easily.
Yeah, as a betting preview, I bet on sports a lot. That's what I do as a thing. So I'm actually taking FSU to cover 10.5. I'd probably take FSU to cover up to like 11, 11.5, 12 gets a little, that's like a gray area, but I think FSU's defense, they show up big, and I don't think they'll have any trouble scoring points on Georgia Tech. I have another bet for week 0. SMU is going to Nevada. I like Nevada's total points under 15.5. Last season, they averaged 17.3 points per game in conference play, and that's against the Mountain West. Yeah. So I think they probably scored less than 10 points against SMU.
So those are the 2 matchups we wanted to kind of break down and look at for Saturday. I think the biggest news going into the season for college football is the changes to the conferences. Let's break down. Do you want to start with the ACC?
Yeah, so the ACC is adding 3 teams this year. They added Cal, like I said, SMU, and Stanford.
Interesting to see a lot of West Coast teams, and I think the getting used to going to a lot of like East Coast games, a lot of travel. I know that has a lot of impact on games. It's not really mentioned much, but it is a factor definitely for teams traveling that far. I think is a big adjustment for a lot of those teams.
I know some people are calling the ACC the All Coast Conference now. It's not the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Literally,
because we got some West Coast teams in there now, Cal and Stanford.
Yeah.
But definitely like the travel for a lot. I mean, we'll talk about the Big Ten as well for travel implications. But if you take a look at Cal and Stanford, their schedule, like they're playing at home and then they're playing a conference game away 4 hours across the United States the next week. And then they're going back after that game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they hold up with the travel.
Like you said, the Big Ten is adding the USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington group to the bunch. I'm interested to see not only the travel aspect, but I think the weather aspect for this conference is going to be interesting for the West Coast teams. I think USC and UCLA going to a Michigan or a Wisconsin or a Minnesota late in the season, it's a very different dynamic than playing in sunny California, and West Coast weather games. Very different look for them. Very interested. I think that's probably the most interested conference I'm in with changes. I think that just made that conference a little bit closer to like the SEC in my opinion with talent and everything. So I'm really interested in the Big Ten and how it all pans out for them.
And then moving on to the Big 12. So the Big 12 lost two teams. They lost Oklahoma and Texas,
Yep.
but then they get Colorado and Prime Time joining the
Yep.
Big 12, along with Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah is joining the Big 12 as well.
Yeah, I think this is going to be like a closer to like the Pac-12 type of vibe where it's going to be a lot of offense, not a lot of defense, a lot of scoring, a lot of overs we're going to take this year. I think this is probably like the least, intriguing conference to talk about with the changes. Losing Oklahoma and Texas is huge. I think those are big names to lose in that conference. That's a huge hit for them as a whole. Next up, we're going to go with the big boys, the SEC. They, like you said, are taking Oklahoma and Texas and adding them into the mix. Interested on how you think Oklahoma and Texas is going to go from seeing teams that they were previously facing versus now SEC opponents and talent level. Do you think that's going to have like a huge impact on their overall records and anything like that?
I mean, it's definitely going to be a challenge. I think Oklahoma and Texas are probably the most prepared teams out of the Big 12. If I had to choose two, like Oklahoma and Texas to go to the SEC, like they're probably the two teams that can handle themselves the best
Yeah.
in the SEC.
I think obviously there's a lot of buzz around Texas with Archie there. Obviously coming off last year playoff appearance, like I think they're like you said they're definitely equipped to compete. I think Texas more so than Oklahoma is definitely equipped for a decent run in the SEC, but yeah, there's not too much of a difference really. So we'll see how that looks. Um, Anything else on the conferences to touch on? I think we kind of covered most of that.
I think the biggest takeaway just overall is like the travel,
Yeah.
just like seeing how that's going to impact teams from the West Coast, but also teams like that were in the Big Ten and the ACC. Now they have to travel to like California to
Yeah.
play and then travel back to the East Coast the next week.
Yeah.
So it's big for both teams that are like being added, but also teams that are already in the conference.
I think we should touch on the top 25. Right off the bat, I agree with pretty much the front four. The AP has Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas in the top four spots. I really don't mind that at all. I think those are pretty set in stone. After that, it gets a little bit interesting from about 5 through 10. I will say, I think Florida State at 10 is a bit of a like kind of slap in the face. I think that a lot of people are not sleeping on Florida State, but just kind of they lost their quarterback, lost a lot of guys to the NFL, and they're really not going to be what they were last year. But I think they're going to be a really good team. Any teams that you see in the top 25 that you want to hint on or talk about?
I think Michigan is getting a little disrespected. I know they obviously lose Jim Harbaugh, they lose JJ McCarthy, they lose Blake Corum, but at 9, I think they just won a national championship.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 is where they should be.
Yeah.
And then might be surprising to some people, but Ole Miss at 6. I think
Yeah.
their expectations are definitely high.
I agree with the Ole Miss. Like I know they have a strong presence at quarterback, which is obviously huge in college football, but overall, I mean, just in that conference, it's tough. It's tough to, you know, I would say, hit the standard or the expectations. Alabama's obviously been a huge part of that and being consistent. Georgia, I just haven't seen it from Ole Miss. There really hasn't been a ton of things to go off of. Obviously, it's great that they have a lot of expectation, but I do agree. I think that they are a little bit too low on the list for the top 25. And then I think a bit of a big surprise is Missouri at 11. Just kind of sitting there, maybe a team that can like sneak into the playoff, compete at a high level with some of these teams. I think that's a team to probably watch and look out for. Kind of hinting at the Missouri take I had, but any sort of players or teams to look out for this year, maybe like a sleeper team or a player that might impact the game.
Yeah, so one quarterback that I am looking at is Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. We were just talking about Ole Miss being ranked 6 overall. I think Jackson Dart is a huge reason why they are ranked number 6. He had over 3,300 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. He has 2 returning receivers and a returning tight end. Just a little betting preview. He's plus 1,400 to win the Heisman. If you don't know odds, it's like a $100 bet to win $1,400. Pretty good odds. I think he's tied with like 5 other guys. And maybe this might be a hot take, but Jackson Dart, top 5 name for a quarterback maybe ever. Like that's like Jackson Dart.
Like yeah, that's definitely a
Hall of Fame name.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's up there for sure. Definitely a good player to watch this year. Like you said, big reason that Ole Miss is definitely in the 6th spot this year. Again, a lot of expectations. That's heavy to fill, but we'll see if he can get the job done. For my player to watch this year, I'm actually going with a defensive guy. I'm going with Abdul Carter. He's an edge rusher / linebacker for Penn State. Freak athlete. He is the first Penn State linebacker to finish with at least 6 sacks and 10 tackles for loss in a season. Excited to see him. Excited to see Penn State and what they can do defensively. I think that's going to be one of the strong points for them this year. Now, do you want to break down a team?
I think the ACC in general is it's not wide open. I think there's a couple teams at the top, but I think there is room for some sleeper teams, and Virginia Tech is actually on my watch list. Last season, they won 5 of their last 7 games to end 2023, including a bowl game. They have a ton of guys returning this year. College football nowadays is like your roster the next season because of NIL and the portal. Like Virginia Tech's returning a lot of guys. Top 5 national ranked returning roster according to ESPN, which I think that can have an impact, especially in a conference that isn't like too clear cut.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's funny because I actually chose an ACC team as well. I'm actually representing them today, my team. Canes. I'm going with Miami. My main point is, like you said, the ACC is kind of open. It's definitely like far more, winnable, I think, in recent years than it was when Dabo was kind of, running the scene for a while there with Clemson. I think that Miami, just looking at the strengths of the team, I think Cristobal, I think offensively we're going to be fine. I think he has, his strengths when he was at Oregon was offensive line and offense. That was their high production there. I'm excited for them to continue to grow in that. The one problem that we had overall as a team was protecting the football. We had 22 turnovers last year. Losing the turnover battle in football is, you're not going to win many games doing that. We upgraded at quarterback. We got Cam Wade from Washington State. I did like our quarterback, but I think this is definitely an upgrade and probably, one of the most important things we need, you need in college football is definitely a high-level quarterback to, compete against everyone else in what seems like the country that has a top Heisman guy. So I'm excited for Miami this year. I am praying that we're good. It's been a very long time, but that is my team and sleeper team to watch out for. So excited for the U this year.
It's all about the U.
It is all about the U, except for the last 15 years, but it's fine. A huge topic to talk about. I think we might actually spend a little bit of time on this because of how I think just impactful his run was of us growing up watching football and everything. But Nick Saban is no longer the coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Jason, what are your first initial thoughts on that?
I mean, he's not only not the coach of Alabama, but he's not a coach of any football team right now,
Right.
which is kind of crazy. He started at Alabama in '07.
Yeah.
I was in sixth grade in '07.
Yeah, I was like 9 years old.
6 national championships, overall record of 201-29 at Alabama.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, I'd say, especially in college football because it's so hard with like players going to the NFL like all the time, and you kind of have to restart. Like every season's a new season
Yep.
In the NFL and in college football, but more so in college football. And Nick Saban has just he is what every coach should want to be at the college level.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think for us, a really good comparison to Saban's run at Alabama is going to be New England's run with Brady and Belichick. I think it almost became like normal for me to like, go into each college football season expecting Bama to not only just compete for a national championship, but probably win one. I mean, it was every year it seemed like it, again, similar with New England, us growing up, all we heard was, okay, this is the year that New England dies, or this is the year that Alabama's done. And then they would just be raising another trophy up in my face. So, yeah, I think Saban and just like we've kind of sent stuff back and forth with each other, just like his interviews and stuff. I'm not sure if like there's not another coach that anyone would want to have played for. That's why obviously when he left, they lost quite a good bit of players. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like for Bama this year. I'm interested to see. I don't think they're going to die. I think the answer to the question for me is going to be no. I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff or anything. But
obviously, it's going to be you can't replace Nick Saban. Like he's one of one.
Yeah.
But I really think they're getting a good coach in Kalen DeBoer. He took Washington to the national championship last year. I think from the fan perspective, just because they're losing Nick Saban, it's like, all right, Alabama's run is over. But I think they're going to be in the conversation at the end of the year. They're going to make the playoff.
For sure.
So if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm not worried.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm interested. Again, it's just interesting. Change is interesting. I think that we experienced that a lot in football in the last couple of years, and this is a big one, especially for college football. I think they've been the face of college, for a while, and it's interesting to see. I mean, I know Georgia's kind of competed and won back to back, but just again, it's a huge change. Probably the best college football coach ever. Arguably, I don't even know if it probably is, in my opinion. So interested to see how the Crimson Tide adapt to that.
I think one more point on that. I think it's going to be interesting because like Kalen DeBoer is he was an offensive coordinator. He's an offensive minded coach. Nick Saban is a defensive minded coach. Arguably, like Kalen DeBoer might have a better roster than he did with Washington last year.
Oh yeah.
I know like Michael Penix, like electric, won games for them. Obviously, was a big part of why they were in the Natty.
Right.
But just the offensive schemes like that Kalen DeBoer is going to bring to Alabama.
Yeah.
And I think like that Alabama defense is always going to be like,
it's like a culture thing almost.
Yeah.
It's like, honestly, it's a good comparison to like our favorite teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, like
right.
in the NFL. Like it's rare that we ever have like horrible defenses, and I can agree on that. I can see Alabama just sticking with that, but that's a great sort of idea of like the offensive side now coming to possibly Bama, because I think really like through his runs, like when they had Lane Kiffin, I think that was when they were really explosive. Like that was the offenses that were just like up and down the field, along with great defenses. Those were the teams that were just like, oh, these are some of the best teams of all time in college football. But yeah, that's a really good, interesting dynamic that we're going to see. Maybe a new look, maybe a high scoring Alabama offensive driven team. That's a really good point. I think the next thing we should probably get into is our college football playoff predictions. If you want to, you can kick us off with that.
In my number one, I have Georgia. I think they're going to win the SEC. I think that's probably the unanimous decision around the college football. In the 2 spot, I have Ohio State winning the Big Ten.
Yep.
In the 3, I have Clemson winning the ACC. The ACC is going to be interesting, but I
Yeah.
do like Clemson. And then in the Big 12, the newcomer Utah taking the 4 seed there. Then I have Oregon at 5, Notre Dame at 6, Alabama at 7, Texas at 8, Penn State at 9, Ole Miss at 10, FSU at 11, and then Tulane getting the American Conference.
I actually have the same 2 slots you have. I have Georgia number 1 winning the SEC again. I think, like you said, that's probably the clear cut best team in the country this year. Number 2, I have Ohio State. I think the losses to Michigan allow for them to kind of jump on that and take the Big Ten. I don't think it'll be as easy as people might think, but I can see them coming out on top. This is where it starts to differ of what we have. I have FSU and the 3 winning the ACC. Again, like I said, I think that a lot of people count them out from losing their quarterback, losing a lot of players to the draft and stuff. But I love their coaching staff. I love their defensive guys. Like they fly around to the ball out there. And yeah, I have them in the 3 winning the ACC this year. I have the same Big 12 champs as you. I have Utah in the 4 spot. Again, mine aren't in particular seeding order. After that, I have Oregon in the 5. And then I have right behind them, I have Texas. I think you can, if this was like a real like bracket, I think you could put Texas all the way up, even past like into the 4 slot. I think they're just going to be a really great team this year again. Number 7, I have Notre Dame. Not too much to speak about Notre Dame. I just think they're going to be a good team this year. At 8, I have Bama. Like we said, I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. That might even be a little low or high for them, I should say. Again, they might surprise some people and just let everybody know, hey, we're not dying and we ain't going nowhere. Number 9, I have Penn State. Number 10, I have Ole Miss, and number 11, I have my sleeper team in Miami. I'm praying we make the playoffs this year. It would be great. I would love to see Miami represented and to actually play for something. I think they can do it. And then number 12, I have Memphis as the winners of that conference. So,
like we say in the NFL, like any given Sunday, 12 teams
yeah,
in a college football like bracket playoff is going to be fun to watch, honestly. And there are going to be upsets. Like I guarantee you, there are going to be like big upsets even in the first year of the playoffs with 12 teams. And I'm excited for it.
The one thing I think that nobody talks about in college as much as the NFL, but it's those teams that get hot down the stretch of the season. USC did this with Sam Darnold. They had a bump in the road like early in the season, and how college was with 4-team playoff, it was like their season's done. But I remember they reeled off like the last like 6, and they were destroying people. And they didn't end up getting in, but that was a team that you probably didn't want to see in the playoff.
That December is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah,
The bowl season is just going to be that much better, just because there's going to be like 6 extra games. Like I watch bowl games. Like obviously they mean a lot to the teams, but they don't mean a lot to like fans if you're not a fan of the team.
yeah.
But now that there will be this game actually matters going into the playoff.
Yeah, that's a great point because most bowl games were, nobody cared about them.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like, okay, we made the bowl game, but we're not going to compete for the national championship. Our season doesn't even matter.
Yeah, like I mean, half the players don't even play in the bowl games because they're going to the NFL.
Yeah.
Like now, like a lot more will matter.
Right. I think the biggest takeaway, because I've talked about this with friends for years now on, hearing rumors about them expanding the playoff and if they were ever going to do it. And I think the one biggest thing that I hope it changes or at least has like some sort of impact on is the strength of scheduling. I think a lot of teams are going to, obviously it's very important to get those 2 seeds to get the bye week. But I think it's very important to now allow your fan base to actually see good matchups. Like I'm sick of seeing, Alabama go play UTEP and Ohio State go, you know what I'm saying? Like I hope that it invites more on the road big matchups. Or I remember last year, I think we had a game that started the season that was like a huge matchup out of conference too. I can't remember who it was, but just inviting games like that, that week 6, 7, where it's like, oh, there's only 2 games that are even worth watching this week. Whereas now it can maybe even be up to 8. It just invites a little bit more freedom with losses. You don't have to go undefeated anymore to even be in conversation to make the playoff. There's 12 slots. Play who you can play. Play the best competition and let the best teams make it. So I'm hoping that it just creates a little bit more, not competitiveness, but enjoyability of some games. Obviously, it's college. Anything can happen on matchups. But again, I hope a lot of these Power 5 programs just implement that into their strength of scheduling and allow for better matchups just overall.
Even though, like how we had last year, like FSU not getting in, they went undefeated.
Right.
They wanted to be the 4 spot or whatever 3 spot. I think that will probably happen this year, but it will be with the 13th and the 14th spot. Like teams are going to be like, we got snubbed. We lost 1 game and it was to Georgia.
Yeah.
But we're not in. So I think that's probably always going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like if you're those teams that sit in the 13, I feel like it's always similar teams too around there. That's like always the Auburns, Ole Miss has been in that range. Like, but if you sit in the 13, 14, 15 spot, like no disrespect, even if Miami ends up there, you weren't good enough to make it. Like 4, I get because 5, 6, and 7, you can argue a lot. There's been a couple of years with that, but I think 13 through 15, like just take your season and improve the next year. But 12
because it's up to like the 5 Power 5. You get a bid if you're the champion of the conference, you're in.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the next 7 are up to the committee.
Quite a few new changes this year in football, like the conferences, the kickoff rule in the NFL. Obviously, Nick Saban. Like it just seems like a fresh new start for football. Maybe not fresh new start, but just there's a lot of like buzz and excitement. I think in the unknown of a lot of things going on. So, like we talked about with Bama, another team to look out for this year, probably the most polarizing and talked about team, 4-win football team I've ever seen in my life. But the Colorado Buffalo led none other than Deion Sanders at the helm of that. Is there any initial thoughts on Colorado this year? I know, again, they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of big players, I think big name players.
Yeah, going back to last year, like I didn't buy into the hype, but I was excited to watch like Deion coach and Shador play and Travis Hunter. Like they have some big name guys. And then when they like came out week 1 and they beat TCU, who was ranked 17th, like that was pretty fun. Yeah. They started 3-0, and then obviously they finished the season 4-8. When they start playing conference play in the Pac-12, they start getting that beating. I mean, they started at Oregon, they lost 42-6.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was
a shellacking.
That was when they came back down to earth, and then they never really got back into it. I mean, they got 1 win at Arizona State, but after that, they pretty much lost every conference game.
Yeah.
But looking at this season, a big reason why they lost a lot of those games was because Shador was the most sacked QB in all of college football last year. He was one of the top performing QBs in the nation while being sacked the most, which is pretty impressive. So obviously a huge offseason need was offensive line.
Yeah,
people to protect Shador. So 55 new scholarship players for Colorado, notably a 5-star recruit left tackle, Jordan Seaton. Obviously a need for Colorado is offensive line. I think that's probably the only need. If I was Deion, I would only be recruiting offensive linemen because they have playmakers. They have guys that can catch the ball. They have good running backs. But if you're getting sacked 4.7 times per game,
that's an insane number. I think the biggest strength with Colorado is the draw to Deion. I've heard, I feel like he's a figure that it's either like you love him or you hate him. I feel like as a coach, you'd probably love to play for him, as a former player. That's the one thing I will say about it's very rare to find a good coach that was a great player. Very hard to try and coach guys who weren't as good as you, or that struggle with that extra work that he probably put in, and things of that nature. So I've always seen that. I've always heard that it's very difficult for a great or slash good player to be a great head coach. But I think the draw for Colorado is Dion. I mean, I think that's the biggest strength they have. And like you said last year, I know the start of the season was up here, the expectations, and then they met him. And then they kind of fell, back down to earth. I think if he can kind of hone that team and kind of get the noise off of them and just get to football, like you said, they have great players. I mean, they have some of the best players at their position in the country.
Shedeur will probably be going to, or definitely will be going to the NFL next year.
Yeah.
And I know Dion has said this, like, he's like his son, but he's also the quarterback, and he treats him just like any other player. So it'll be interesting to see when Dion is still the coach at Colorado, and then Shedeur is in the NFL, how that like dynamic, and Travis Hunter will be gone as well. He'll be in the NFL too.
Yeah.
Just like how the recruiting goes, like who's going to be the quarterback for Colorado. If they win like 7-8 games this year in the Big 12, like who knows?
I think the biggest draw to Colorado is Dion. I think obviously like the head coach is going to be the biggest part of that, but there's no foundation really for Colorado. Like he's building it. He's building the culture. He's building the program. He's building what we've seen from programs like Alabama or Ohio State, or now Michigan, Georgia. So yeah, like you said, I think it starts with him. I think it's very interesting to see, again, down the road in a couple of years when some of these guys are gone, like how well he can, recruit, develop, build a program. But I'm on board with Colorado. I've always been a fan of them. I just don't like a lot of the noise that they create. And it's not a lot of them too. It's just, one of those polarizing figures at head coach and stuff like that. But yeah, interested in Colorado. I think I could see, like you said, like a 7-8 win year for them would be huge. Obviously anything above that is beyond expectation, at least for, I feel like guys like us, like we're not, I'm not saying they're going, and winning a ring anytime soon, but excited for them, excited for Dion. And yeah, overall, I think we are excited for the football season. It's here.
The next time we talk, football that matters will have been played.
That's exciting.
So that's cool.
That's super exciting.
We get a little taste of it this weekend with 4 games. And then next weekend, I mean, we get the full college football Saturday and Sunday, because the NFL hasn't started yet. So they usually play games on that Sunday, but it's going to be fun. I can't wait.
We didn't talk about this, but I guess we should give our very, very early ring holding team this year in college football. I think this would be a good idea to get a team that's going to hoist the Natty this year. I think Ohio State. Now, it's not my personal favorite, but you got to throw not an oddball, but it can't be just the fan favorite. But I think Ohio State is going to raise the national championship this year.
So my national championship prediction preseason, I'm actually going to go with the Oregon Ducks.
I love that pick.
With Dylan Gabriel at the helm.
I would love to see Oregon hoist one. It has been a while since Mariota was a quarterback. So, yeah, excited. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys next episode.
Peace.
Bye, guys.